Who is Malala? Well, this book is called I Am Malala. Now, Malala, you guys might know him if you were actually old enough to understand what happened in 2012 as the girl who was shot in Swat Valley by the Taliban. Now, the Taliban in nowadays news has been depicted as people with guns, some people who inadvertently created apparently superheroes. I'm referencing Iron Man here, but also they're also in current years, like 2023, they're the people who regained control of Afghanistan and even Pakistan. And we know them as people who call themselves Muslims, but they aren't exactly Muslims. They don't do Muslim things too, and they kind of go and do Islam law a bit too extreme. Anyways, let's go back to I Am Malala. This video is not just about the life of Malala. In fact, I have no information about what happened right after she was 16 years old. She wrote this when she was 16 years old. And so right now, I'm gonna just give you guys a summary of this book, I Am Malala. And yes, the girl on the cover right there is Malala. Let's start. Now, this book starts off before Malala was born, or starts off with context of Malala's dad, YOUSAFZAI. And Malala's dad went ahead, and his dream was to create a school. Now, this is Pakistan. Pakistan was created in 1947, and just a year after its founder was dead. And then it was said that boys were the only ones who were allowed to actually go to school. And then there, of course, were some girls' schools, but however, there's not that many too. Pakistan itself wasn't that strict on girls not going to school, and so they just let girls go to school. Now, but there weren't many schools that actually let girls in. So Malala's father wanted to change all that. His dream was to create a school where all the girls can go in and they would be able to do whatever they wanted and be whatever they wanted and to learn how to do whatever they wanted, how to become whatever they wanted. And originally he wanted to go ahead and start a school. Then he met Malala's mother, who also had parents who wanted her to go to school, but she decided, hey, I think I want to just stay with my friends more. Why should I go to school working hard when my friends are out here out doing and having carefree time? She later realized that it was only until she met her dad, Malala's dad, that she was actually, well, feeling a lot of regret, because even though she was an adult, she was very illiterate. She couldn't read, she couldn't write. Of course, she could speak, of course, but she couldn't do anything much else. In fact, that's the only education she's ever gotten, how to read. I mean, how to speak. That's the only thing she's ever been able to. And there's nothing much that anyone could ever do. And, of course, there were also some conflicts between Malala's dad's family and Malala's mother's family. The paternal and the maternal side's family were apparently feudal. Their grandpas didn't like each other. Their mothers didn't like each other. Well, at least some of their mothers were passed on, but their fathers hate each other. Baba, as they called Malala's paternal grandpa, which is their father's father, was a really good speaker, and I'm pretty sure that's where YOUSAFZAI, Malala's father, actually got his speech from. And for some reason, Malala's dad had a stutter, and apparently nothing worked, and he still had that stutter to the day of publication of this book. And his dad actually was pretty mad about it. Why do you have a stutter? I want you to be a career person, but you are not going to be respectful if you're going to stutter. I don't know how to stop stuttering. Slap. And apparently I've read another story where there's this guy who had a stutter, but they kept slapping his mouth with a white cloth, whenever that kid tried to stutter, and like, I hate you. I don't hate you, but it's for your own good. And for some reason, the stuttering did stop. Wow. That happened. But they didn't actually do that treatment. In fact, they just put something in his mouth, said some weird kind of spell, and said, you will not stutter. Something like that. But however, it didn't actually work. And even as an adult, he still stuttered. And then Malala's dad was also a pretty good speaker. And then Malala's maternal grandpa died. What a sad thing for his mother. But however, it's good for everyone else, I guess. Now they can get married, and yay, that happened. And they went ahead and got the marriage ceremony. But they didn't actually make it public, so because they couldn't afford the traditional things. Apparently, during weddings in Islam and Muslims, it would go ahead and everyone would be invited. Everyone would have awesome jewelry. Everyone would have awesome food. And they couldn't actually afford all that. They couldn't even afford the gold bracelet that his mother wanted to during the wedding because it was apparently tradition to bring gold from the father's side of the family to the mother's side of the family. What the heck? But hey, they couldn't afford it, so they didn't actually announce this wedding. They did it in private, and then after the marriage ceremony, they told everyone else, which is kind of a shame too. And they still couldn't afford it. And that's when Malala's dad started trying to go find a school to work out, and he got some rent, and they were all like, and then when he went to register his school to the government, and he called it Kushal School, the guys were like, you wanna start a school? I thought paying for school. I thought starting a school was free. Well, yes it is, but I'm not putting it out unless. And so he was mad. I'm not bribing you. It's making a school illegal? No, but apparently they wanted bribes, and he couldn't afford bribes either. And they were like, okay, you want a scoop? Start a school. Give you money. Even though it was completely free to go ahead and do that. And which is really, really annoying for him too, because he was extremely annoyed. And then Malala's father eventually was able to start a school, of course. Afterwards that school was started, he had a hard time finding pupils because everyone didn't want their daughters to go to the school, especially when they realized that he had during that time un-Muslim, un-Islamic ideas like boys and girls mixing together, halal, very unhalal. That happened. He had a hard time finding girls to go ahead. Sometimes he even had to give away some free educations too, because he was actually kind of story too. And he also could not refuse to give anyone hospitality. And since he couldn't refuse hospitality, most of the time they would just come in and feed them instead of themselves, which is an annoying thing. Then Malala was born, and he went ahead and went on a campaign across Swat Valley to go ahead and just give women's rights and teaching rights to everyone. And it worked out well. And then the Taliban came in, and then Afghanistan happened. And then Afghanistan went into Pakistan, and they had to flee. Malala's family had to flee. Malala was just pretty small during all this happened, but then she kept staying there, and then she was contacted by a foreign reporter in 2011 and was asked to actually write a diary. They gave her the Diary of Anne Frank, which is also on this cover. There's this little quote that said, riveting. It is difficult to imagine a chronicle of a war more moving, apart from perhaps the Diary of Anne Frank. Apparently there's this Diary of Anne Frank, to German War. I've actually read the story. It's the diary itself, and it was good. So, yay, this is like a second one too. Anyways, that happened. And Anne Frank herself wrote about what it was like to live under the Nazis, and they wanted to write make someone write something similar to that, except it was a diary of under the Taliban. And unlike Anne Frank, they actually couldn't make them use their real name because these people are alive, and they'd be publishing this while that person is alive. So they had to give her a new name, and so they decided to just give her the name Gul Makai. It's actually a pretty better name than Malala. Apparently, Malala means sorrowful. And under the name Gul Makai, she started writing. Malala started writing lots of things, and this is when she made her first appearance into the BBC World. She published all this on BBC. They published it all there, and she almost gave herself away a few times. Also, her friends finally figured out that Gul Makai was her, without her telling them that it was, because he apparently dropped in some hints that this was the Kushal school. I go to Kushal school. Pretty good. Also, she was definitely told not to do any of that. Her friends finally figured out she was Gul Makai, and yeah, the secret couldn't keep. That happened, and later she revealed that she was Gul Makai. But instead of Gul Makai, she was called Malala. She decided to go by the name Malala now, and then she stopped writing those diaries. What happened? And then the Taliban went away, and finally they decided to go ahead on a school trip. They went on buses, and the girls and the driver came in, and then, well, this happened. They went next to an army checkpoint, and just a few minutes after they passed the army checkpoint, a man went on, and he said, and then shot the girls. Well, 3 of them. Malala got shot in the head. Luckily, it didn't pass through the brain. Also, it did hit the skull. The other 2 people were friends of Malala, and one of them was shot directly and it passed through her, and another one didn't realize she was shot until when she went home and started dressing and found out she was grazed by a bullet, and then she was discharged to hospital. Apparently she didn't realize she was grazed by a bullet. How? That happened, and Malala was pretty badly hurt, and then they had to transport her to somewhere else. The Pakistan army already said that there's no Taliban in the SWAT. Everyone calm down. There's no Taliban in the SWAT. Hey, this guy died because Taliban shot him. No, he didn't. He was shot because of a family feud. And then finally, Malala's father, who was really annoyed right now, was told that, okay, we were lying. There were 22 Taliban here for at least 2 months. And yes, a Taliban did shoot your friend. I'm sorry about that. You lied to us, he wanted to say, but he realized that would get him nowhere, and he was like, you told us there was no Taliban here, and then now you tell me that there were Taliban here and SWAT for at least 2 months. They still haven't found the leader of the Taliban, the Fuzullah, anymore. Anyway, that happened, and then Gumakai came, and then Malala was between life and death, and they had to transport her to Birmingham because apparently SWAT hospitals are terrible, so they had to do neurosurgery there, or they had to cut a piece of skull out so that the brain was swelling, and the brain, if it was contained, the swelling was contained here, it would explode and Malala would die. And so they had to give some space for Malala's brain to swell, which is a bad idea. Never make your brain swell. And so they had to cut a piece of skin, and then a lump formed, and that lump, underneath that lump, was her brain. And so the only protection between her brain, for above her brain, was just the skin, not the skull, the skin. You heard me right. The skin. And so they had to keep it really, really careful. And then they transported her to Birmingham. And when Malala finally woke up, she thought, am I being kidnapped right now? Or something similar to that. And everyone said, calm down, your dad's fine. He's in Pakistan, and do not worry about the money. And they was like, oh, we don't have money. We're going to have to pay. No. My dad's there trying to sell all the school. But wait, it's a rental. He's selling our land. Maybe he's getting our rich donor to get it. Oh, no, my father's going to have to pay. No, the government's not going to help it out. Don't worry. The government's going to pay for your help. I don't believe that. My father is okay. Then why isn't he here? And 10 days later, he was here. So like, yay, you're okay. And that happened. And then Malala was prevented from the press because apparently all 8,000 people were outside and they wanted to see her, but they couldn't let them because it's a hospital and she's recovering. She needs privacy and she needs quiet, not a lot of stress, which would destroy the brain, definitely. There's only skin. And afterwards that happened, Malala just went ahead and finally she was discharged. She finally went home. She finally went into her Birmingham home, rented home, which was rented by the Pakistan government. What a nice job for them. And they lived there for a while, and eventually they even saw other things too. Her brother found out about Nutella sandwiches and honey. Apparently there's no honey in SWAT. They also found out about short clothes. They bought her lots of things. Apparently lots of people bought her lots of clothes, like t-shirts, pants, shawls, bras, all the whole lots, because they had no idea how conservative she was, or what color she liked, or what Muslim teenagers wore, because they weren't Muslims and they were definitely not teenagers. And the book ended with the saying that even though Malala's world changed, she didn't change herself. She was still the same. And the only thing that the Taliban actually did to make her campaign was to make her campaign global. She miraculously survived. Wow. And I'm pretty sure the skull's back in her head. There's complete protection over her brain now. I'm pretty sure about that. And her campaign is still global. There are lots of things that seems to happen here. You could support her cause by donating to the MALLALAfund.org and lots of things too. And this book, I Am Malala, written by Malala Yousafzai with the help of a woman from the West called Christina Lamb, is an influential book, and this is the whole summary. So I hope you guys enjoyed this episode, and hopefully this episode has also inspired you about girls' education. And yeah. One more thing though, she received the Nobel Peace Prize when she was 16, which is the youngest age anyone has ever received a Nobel Peace Prize. No one has shattered that record yet. I wonder if someone will do that eventually, but I'm probably not gonna live to see it. If I do, I'm gonna have to pay myself $5 million, but I don't have $5 million. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this episode, inspired you about girls' education, and maybe donate to the MALLALA Fund. I don't have any money on me right now. Hope to see you guys soon. Until next time, it's not out. Peace. And yes, I do mean peace.